1,300 civilians dead, nearly 10,000 civilian sites bombed, 170 children killed in a single elementary school strike, an internet blackout so total that an entire nation of 90 million people was cut off from the world at 1% connectivity. Security forces opening fire on people celebrating behind their own windows, and the White House press secretary standing at her podium saying the administration will accept the results of a military investigation into whether American missiles killed those children. These are not details from Iranian state propaganda. These are documented, verified, sourced facts from the Committee to Protect Journalists, from the UN, from human rights organizations, from the U.S. government's own statements, and most of them never made the top of the hour. Welcome. Subscribe right now, because in the next several minutes, we are going to cover the parts of this war that the press conferences skip, the details the breaking news banners never show, and the human reality behind the military scoreboard. Let's go. Let's start with the information blackout inside Iran itself, because before you can understand what is happening to the Iranian people, you need to understand that almost nobody can actually see it in real time. Within hours of the first U.S.-Israeli strikes that killed Supreme Leader Khamenei, Iranian authorities shut down internet access nationwide. Connectivity fell to approximately 4% of normal levels on day one, then dropped further to around 1%. The blackout has now exceeded 240 hours, making it the second longest internet shutdown ever recorded. Only a small number of users retained access through what the government is calling the White Internet, a restricted network handed exclusively to pro-government accounts to allow them to control the narrative. 240 hours, 10 straight days, 90 million people cut off. No independent journalists, no live footage from the ground, no way for ordinary Iranians to tell the world what they are seeing, what they are losing, who they are burying. And into that information vacuum, two completely opposite narratives have poured in. Iranian state media shows pro-government rallies, flags, portraits of the dead supreme leader. Western media shows videos of Iranians celebrating in the streets, hoping the bombs will bring down a regime they have lived under for nearly 50 years. Both things are true simultaneously, and nobody outside Iran can tell you which one represents the majority, because the majority has been silenced. Like this video if you think the full story matters. Now let's talk about the civilians. Iran says nearly 10,000 civilian sites have been bombed and more than 1,300 civilians killed since the war began on February 28th. The United States disputes those numbers. The U.S. says it has struck more than 5,000 military targets, but those two sets of numbers are not mutually exclusive. A school next to an IRGC compound is still a school. A residential building above an underground missile facility is still a residential building, and the people inside are still civilians. A primary school adjacent to an IRGC complex was hit on the very first day of the war in southeastern Iran, reportedly killing nearly 170 children. The Iranian Red Crescent has confirmed nearly 800 people killed, while some human rights organizations estimate the total death toll exceeds 2,400. 800 confirmed, 2,400 estimated, 1,300 according to Iranian authorities. The numbers vary because independent verification is nearly impossible when there is no internet, no free press, and active military operations preventing access. But the range of those numbers, all of them in the hundreds or thousands, tells you something important. This war has a civilian dimension that is not being placed front and center in Western coverage. The White House press secretary addressed an ongoing military investigation into the girls' school strike, noting the administration will accept the results of the probe amid emerging photographic evidence suggesting a U.S. missile was responsible. An investigation, weeks into a war, into the deadliest single incident of the entire conflict, while the families of those children are burying them in a country with no internet access and no way to tell the world their names. Share this video right now. These are the stories that get lost in the noise of military briefings and political spin. Let's keep going. Because the media blackout is not only happening inside Iran, it is happening to journalists covering this war from the outside too. CNN Turk correspondent Emrah Çakmak and his camera operator were detained by Israeli security forces during a live broadcast from Tel Aviv following Iranian missile strikes to the city. Officers halted the transmission on camera. The journalists were taken into custody and their phones, cameras, and microphones were confiscated. Israeli authorities accessed the correspondent's password-protected phone without consent. Israel's Minister of National Security and Minister of Communications then announced stricter enforcement measures against foreign media during ongoing military operations. A journalist detained on live television, his phone accessed without consent, and then the government announcing it will enforce stricter rules against foreign media going forward. That is not a one-off incident. That is policy, and it is happening at the same moment that independent verification of civilian casualties, school strikes, and hospital damage is most desperately needed. Israeli municipal police in Haifa attempted to disperse several international news crews, including CNN, Fox News, the BBC, and multiple other outlets, while they were reporting. Correspondents told the Committee to Protect Journalists that officers ordered them to leave despite their fully complying with military censorship guidelines. Now let's talk about the people this war is killing that nobody is talking about at all: the migrant workers. Many of the reported civilian deaths in the Gulf states are South Asian nationals, highlighting the region's reliance on a migrant workforce operating in precarious conditions. 3 people killed in the UAE were nationals of Pakistan, Nepal, and Bangladesh, killed by Iranian drones that penetrated air defenses. Bangladesh's foreign ministry confirmed another national was killed in Bahrain. The International Labor Organization estimates there are more than 24 million migrant workers in the Arab states. 24 million migrant workers, invisible in the geopolitical coverage, invisible in the military briefings, invisible in the press conferences, and dying in the crossfire of a war between governments, none of them elected, in countries none of them call home, with no evacuation priority and no political voice. More than 43,000 American citizens have been evacuated from the Middle East since the war began. 43,000 Americans evacuated, and 24 million migrant workers from Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka left to shelter in place, work, or flee on their own, invisible to every government conducting this war. And then there's the detail that reframes the entire origin story of this war, the piece that has been almost completely buried. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff described the final, unsuccessful efforts to reach a nuclear agreement with Iran just days before the war began. Witkoff said Trump sent him and Jared Kushner to Geneva to determine if Iran was serious about a deal addressing Trump's objectives. The U.S. delegation proposed a 10-year halt to uranium enrichment. According to the Omani mediator who was facilitating the talks, significant progress had been made. Iran had agreed to zero enriched uranium, and then the war started anyway. A diplomatic agreement was within reach, and the administration chose war instead. That choice and the reasons behind it have received a fraction of the coverage dedicated to military strike counts and oil price movements. Despite the unprecedented intensity of the military campaign, full capitulation remains unlikely. Hardline elements within the IRGC are likely dominating decision-making. Washington may be banking on rapid internal fracture or large-scale defections, yet there is little evidence of this so far. A successful popular uprising also remains improbable. The public is unarmed, unorganized, and confronting one of the most repressive regions in the region. That assessment is not from an anti-war activist, it's from ACLED, one of the most respected conflict data organizations in the world. The strategy has a low probability of achieving its stated goal. The intelligence community said so before the war started. Independent analysts are saying so now, and the mainstream coverage has largely moved on to the next day's strike count. 12 days in, more than 1,300 civilians confirmed dead, a school strike killing 170 children under active investigation, an internet blackout cutting off 90 million people for over 240 hours, journalists detained on live television, 24 million migrant workers abandoned in a war zone, a diplomatic agreement abandoned days before the first bomb fell, and a military strategy that the United States' own intelligence community assessed as unlikely to achieve its goals. That's the war the briefings don't fully show you. That's the story behind the story. And it matters, because wars are not just military events, they are human events, and the humans caught inside this one deserve to be seen. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What part of this story do you think deserves more coverage? Subscribe to this channel if you want the full picture every time there is a major development. Share this video with someone who only knows the surface of this story, and we'll